For this session, we have one of the very prominent and eminent educationist, teacher educationist, who was worked throughout his life in the area of teacher education and associated with National Council for Teacher Education, National Council of Educational Research and Training, Professor L.C. Singh, and we will be discussing on the theme emerging trends in teacher education. Professor Singh, who is the expert for today's session, is well known in the area of teacher education. He was worked very extensively in this field during his tenure in NCERT. So, we will be discussing the emerging trends in teacher education. Teacher education, as you know, is one of the important and critical sectors which contribute not only to the development of education system in the country, but also to the national development and overall growth of the nation, because this is the sector, this is the field which prepares teacher education. Unless teacher education is well in place, nothing can go ahead, because a good teacher education system develops good teachers. So, I request Professor L.C. Singh to start with a short brief historical perspective of teacher education in our country. Professor Singh, please.
Thank you very much. See, the teacher education is as old as the education system itself. As we all know that teacher education and education system as a whole is British legacy. During British period, formal system of teacher training started. One of the oldest colleges was started in Madras and Calcutta, and later on many training colleges came up. Now, the main development of teacher education in the country belongs to the post-independence period. After getting the independence in 1947, the Government of India appointed University Education Commission in 1949. The focus of the Commission's recommendations was mainly higher education, and they also recommended the preparation of teachers for the university. Then central government and state governments, mainly the state government is responsible for the education in the state. In 1968, the central government also took the responsibility as a cooperative venture for education. So, 1968 the education became on the concurrent list. Then in 1952 Secondary Education Commission was set up, which recommended multi-purpose schools, and for multi-purpose schools special teachers for technology branch were required. So, in 1960s regional colleges of education were set up to prepare teachers for technology stream, and also it started the integrated 4-year teacher education program, which was an innovative program in teacher education in the regional colleges of education. Then in 1964-66 Education Commission was set up, which recommended the school structure common to the entire country, 10 plus 2 plus 3, and it focused attention on teacher preparation. The commission devoted one full chapter on teacher preparation in its report. The main lack in the teacher education, as pointed out by the commission, the isolation of teacher education institutions from schools, isolation from other teacher training institutions, and isolation from the community. So this was the main recommendation of the Education Commission, and then came the new policy of education, new national policy on education in 1986, which has made several salient recommendations which has improved and affected the teacher education system in the country. It recommended centrally sponsored scheme under which institutes of advanced studies were set up. Then colleges of teacher education were set up. Some of the colleges which are considered potentially quality teacher institution were also upgraded into colleges of teacher education. Then in each district institute of education and training, DIETs, were set up as a result of the recommendations, which were responsible for training of elementary school teachers as per the requirement of the district. Then it also recommended the setting up of the National Council for Teacher Education, which in the year 1993 was set up by Act of Parliament.
Okay, Professor Singh has very well given a perspective in the historical terms that how teacher education has evolved in our country, right from British period, the establishment of teacher education in different provinces, then coming down to different commissions, their recommendations for initiating teacher education in our country, and most significant development in the post independence period, that of Education Commission 64-66 and National Policy on Education 1986. And after 1986 National Policy on Education, teacher education got a different structure in the form of DIETs, in the form of IAC and academic staff colleges and College of Teacher Education. And during this period in 1993, landmark which took place in the field of teacher education, that was formation of the National Council for Teacher Education. Professor, let us listen from Professor Singh that what is the structure of NCT, what are its roles and functions, and what is the present status of teacher education in our country, very briefly before going to the emerging trends in teacher education. Professor Singh, would you kindly highlight the structure of NCT, its functions, roles and present status of teacher education, please?
The National Council for Teacher Education was in fact set up in 1973 as a non-statutory body and located in the NCERT in the Department of Teacher Education, and in 1993 it was accorded the status of an statutory body by an Act of Parliament in 1993. In fact, in 1995 it became functional, and the main role of NCTE is a planned and coordinated development of teacher education in the country and maintenance of standards and norms in different levels of teacher education in the country. To achieve this goal, the NCT has a main headquarter where the National Council for Teacher Education, its governing body, which meets once a year. It has an executive committee which meets quite often. It has 4 regional committees in the country. One is Northern Regional Committee, located at Jaipur. Western Regional Committee is located at Bhopal. Southern Regional Committee is located at Bangalore, and the Eastern Regional Committee is located at Bhubaneswar. The Regional Committee's main function is to accord recognition for teacher training courses who apply for starting a new college or old institution starting a new course in teacher training program. Now at present there are nearly 100 elementary teacher education, nursery teacher training institutions. Now for the last more than a decade, nursery teacher training, preschool teacher training is getting importance. So formal teacher training institutions have come up. So far hardly more than 100 teacher training institutions which have been accorded recognition by NCT exist. Now there are about 1141 teacher training institution at the elementary level which have been granted recognition to run a 2-year teacher training program at the elementary level, and there are about 1700 teacher training institutions at the secondary level which run B.Ed program. In addition, the NCT regional committees give recognition for education of physical teachers. They accord recognition, and there are large number of teacher training institutions which offer B.Ed and M.Ed in the country.
What Professor Singh has highlighted, that the formation of NCT at the national level has of course streamlined the teacher education activities throughout the country. Earlier, as we know, that there was no national statutory body which can look into the standard of teacher education in our country. So after the establishment of National Council for Teacher Education activities and in terms of institutions, in terms of courses, in terms of student qualification, duration and many other things, they have been really streamlined. Now there was a time that teacher education was being governed by the respective state governments and the state institutions, but now in order to be functional, teacher education college has to take the recognition and approval of NCT for its overall functioning. So now let us come to different types of teacher education systems which are present in our country. So we can in this context we can discuss a little bit of earlier models of teacher education which are existing, and what is the latest model of teacher education. We will request Professor Singh to highlight on this part.
As I told you earlier, there are 12 types of courses which have been accorded recognition by the NCT. These courses start right from the preschool teacher education to the senior secondary teacher education program. These types of courses are available either at a certificate level, diploma level, degree level and postgraduate level. Now mainly there are two types of teacher education programs which are available in the country. One is the consecutive. After doing the general liberal courses, one goes to the teacher education professional course, which we call consecutive courses. For the B.Ed, say, one has to do graduation first, which is a liberal science and arts program, and then joins a 1-year professional course which is normally a degree program known as Bachelor in Education. This type of courses are generally known as consecutive courses, and one has to make a decision to join the teacher education program after doing the graduation. Now there are two other types of courses which are known as integrated teacher education program, which start right after +2 level, and it's a 4-year program in which the science and art subjects are concurrently taught, and the education courses are also integrated with the science and arts courses. The advantage is that the candidate has to make a decision to get into the teaching profession right after +2 level, and then go for a 4-year program, integrated teacher education. This has been observed that a 4-year integrated program produces better teachers than the consecutive program, which is in fact 1-year duration. And this 4-year integrated program, the candidate has to decide that he is going for teacher training. So, and the theory is learned along with the practical. This is a pedagogic analysis of the subjects to be taught, which gives a better understanding to the candidate of how to teach the particular kind of topic.
Can you give some examples of integrated teacher education program, that LRC model?
There are 5 regional colleges of education which are running BSc B.Ed, BA B.Ed 4-year program, but unfortunately this integrated program could not be transferred to other teacher training institutions in the country because of the cost factor. Although some universities started, Kurukshetra University started even before the regional colleges, we had to discontinue for some reason or the other. But this is supposed to be a better course, and I think more and more institutions should offer, the teacher training institutions should offer the integrated program. Now in Delhi at the elementary level, the Delhi universities offer BLEd program, which is after +2 4-year program preparing teachers for the elementary education, and consecutive program after +2 DIETs are offering 2-year elementary teacher education program. So DIETs are offering consecutive programs, and BLEd Delhi University is offering 4-year integrated program for elementary teachers.
After having detailed idea about the types of teacher education programs that are at present existing in our country, and a very broad perspective of teacher education development in our country and the role of NCT. So with all these in our background, let us discuss that what would be the different trends that are emerging in the area of teacher education. Let us start with that duration, that earlier as you have all rightly said that in integrated model it was 4 years and +1 years, and in consecutive model teacher education was after BSc or BA one has to pursue 1-year B.Ed program. Now there is a change total, there is a change even with regard to duration of the teacher education program and the focus in curriculum and transaction procedure. Let us discuss on all these aspects as emerging trends. Let us start with the duration of the program, please.
The National Council for Teacher Education prepared a framework of quality teacher education in 2000, and this framework by NCT for the first time proposed 2-year B.Ed program. See, the duration of any professional program is very important. It has been found that larger the duration of a professional program, the greater is the social prestige about the program. For example, the medical program for 4 year, engineering program for 4 year, they have a better social prestige than teacher 1 year program. Therefore, it is always desirable to have intensive and comprehensive professional training in a longer duration course. So, the trend, latest trend as recommended by the framework recommended by NCTE, propose a 2-year teacher education program after graduation for secondary education, and as a result 4 of the regional institutes of education under NCERT have been running this program for the last 2 years, and for the secondary education. And the latest thinking is that 2-year program should slowly replace the 1-year program to produce more competent and capable and devoted teachers for the secondary education.
Well, one major trend which is fast emerging in the field of teacher education is with regard to duration of the program. Earlier it was 1 year, now with the intervention of NCT and the seriousness to be attached to the teacher education program, the duration is going to be 2 years. There is a point in increasing the duration. Perhaps in the earlier model, when the duration was 1 year, virtually a teacher trainee is getting hardly 6 to 8 months in actual with regard to course transaction and getting real experiences. So, with that background, a teacher is unable to really qualify to be a teacher, but with 2-year duration, a teacher trainee will get substantial amount of time to get different aspects and nitty-gritty of the teacher education as a professional area of study. Now, coming to the most important component of any teacher education program is its curriculum and the transaction process. As all of us know that in earlier teacher education program, curriculum was well defined, and as anybody wants to enter any kind of teacher education program, he or she has to learn certain specific defined curriculum areas. But as you know that with the development in the field of knowledge and different areas coming in which have direct bearing on school children or schooling processes, learning processes, so then all these have indirectly influenced changes in the teacher education curriculum. So, would you kindly highlight that how the development in the field of knowledge and even in the schooling process, the curriculum of teacher education has to be also changed accordingly?
You see, as we know that we prepare teachers for the school system. Therefore, the teacher education curriculum will have to reflect the school curriculum, the needs of the school. The first national level curriculum framework was prepared by non-statutory NCT in 1978. Then it was revised and reframed in the light of developments in school education in 1988. And when the statutory NCT was established, this also prepared a curriculum framework for the teacher education in 1998. So, keeping in view the needs and the emerging trends in school education, teacher education curriculum has to adjust itself. Now, some of the new curricular inputs which are coming up in teacher education are environmental education. As we all know, the Honorable Supreme Court has advised and that environmental education should form part of school education, and at all level, the school, university level and the teacher education. Value education is coming up another area in teacher education, because value education is now has become integral part of the school curriculum. Then computer education, with the development of technology, information and communication technology, the computer education and computer awareness has become essential part of a school curriculum. It has become also necessary to make computer education part of the teacher education curriculum. Human rights and peace education, another area which is coming up in school education curriculum. Therefore, teacher education has also to incorporate peace and human rights education in its curriculum. The gender education, multiculturalism are another area which is coming up in a school system. Therefore, the teacher education curriculum must incorporate these developments in another part. You see, the curriculum framework is one thing, the development of syllabus is another. After developing detailed syllabi under each for each program, what is important is the curriculum transaction. So, for curriculum transaction, to make the learning more effective, the transactional strategies have also to be modernized. The old lecture cum discussion method have to be replaced by more the teaching strategies which have specific instructional objectives.
You have rightly said that as different new areas are emerging which have direct relation with schooling process, so a host of new areas are going to find place in teacher education curriculum, like environmental education, value education, computer education, human rights education, peace education, gender education. Of course, multiculturalism in the sense that it's going to be a great issue in the future that the teacher education curriculum has to address. So far as transaction process is concerned, as all of us know that we have been depending on the age-old teaching learning processes as defined in different textbooks, but with the advent of ICT, information and communication technology, even transaction process of teacher education programs has also substantially changed. But with the intervention of computers and internet, then email and online education, it is believed that in future many teacher education programs are going to be transacted online, and a lot of help will be taken from internet and that other communication technologies which are fast emerging in the field of teacher education. There are two aspects this to ICT based teacher education. One is that teacher education curriculum must have ICT component where the teacher trainees, they will get acquainted with the use of ICT for teaching learning processes. So these are areas which are fast emerging as future trends, and teacher education has to cope up with those changes. Now let us see that how teacher education has gone beyond the traditional form of teacher education to distance teacher education. Next we will discuss about the pre-service in-service continuum. As all of you know that free service is provided to a fresher who has just completed graduation and wants to enter into teaching profession. Then he is required to undergo pre-service training. But once a teacher is already in service and wants to upgrade his qualification or upgrade his knowledge, both content and pedagogy wise, so in-service training is required. So it is a continuum. Professor L.C. Singh, how teacher education program have free service in service continuum, and what is the role of distance education? Of course we will take up.
Well, the teacher education as a profession, teaching is a profession, and therefore teacher education has 3 stages. The first stage is the general education, and which is followed by technical education, and then we have the professional education. Say a graduate teacher training program, one has the 10 year of general education, and then 2 years and graduation 3 years, 5 years of technical specialized education, science, humanities, social sciences, and then followed by 1 year teacher training professional program. So it has 3 stages. Now this pre-service education is before entering into the job. We can call it a initial training. Now there are teachers, large number of teachers who have entered the teaching profession without taking any formal professional training in education, and therefore the pre-service teacher education leading to some training may not be true for the in-service teachers. There are untrained teachers who have no training. For them providing training while they are on job, we call a initial training while they are in service. Now what happens then, some of the teachers who were trained 5 or 10 years ago have not learned about the developments in education system. For example, environmental education did not exist 10-15 years back. One had a teacher training at that time. Therefore there is always a lag, time lag in the teachers who are already in the job and the pre-service teacher training have some enriched input. Therefore in-service training is required for mainly 2 reasons. One is to upgrade their knowledge, to make their knowledge latest, and secondly to update their competency, latest innovative strategies of teaching. So in-service program is in fact a continuum of the pre-service education.
In this context we will discuss that in-service teacher education program is delivered both through face-to-face mode as well as distance mode. Though face-to-face mode is quite inadequate to meet the in-service requirement of millions of teachers in our country, distance education has come very handy to provide in-service training to millions of teachers in our country. In this context, we would like to record here that Indira Gandhi National Open University has done a very exemplary role by providing a host of programs in the field of teacher education for primary teachers, secondary teachers and higher education teachers. Now coming to the next aspect, that of late another major area of concern in teacher education is privatization in teacher education. What does it mean? The teacher education, which was earlier confined to the governmental initiatives, it has now gone beyond that. It has gone to private sectors. Private sectors, they are taking private sectors and even corporate sectors, they are taking a lot of interest in providing teacher education programs. So in this context we can have a short discussion with Professor Singh, please.
You see, privatization of education and teacher education is not a new concept. In fact, earlier also we are having institutions governed by private agencies and philanthropic and societies. Teacher education also have institutions, but they were given grant by the government. So they were grant in aid institutions, though owned by private bodies. Now of late in 1990s, early 90s, the government of India's policy of liberalization and privatization, in fact to be more correct is self-financing institutions in teacher education have been coming up in large number. As we know that today thousands of institutions in teacher education at different levels are owned by self-financing organizations, self-financing institutions. Now main role of NCT is it is a regulatory body. So it has to see the input factors are available in the institution to start a program of teacher education. Now if the regional committees through visiting teams satisfied that the initial infrastructure, faculty and other support system are available, their recognition is granted, which is later on affiliated by a recognized state or the central university. Now the main lack in self-financing is the lack of faculty, as per the norms, trained, qualified faculty to teach the teacher education program.
We find that a lot of private initiatives are taking place nowadays, even as you have rightly known from Professor Singh. Corporate sectors, they are also coming in, like I think Wipro is coming in the field of teacher education, and it has launched a very gigantic project in the field of teacher education, particularly primary teacher education programs. Though some institutions, they are doing very well in the private sectors, but there are problems like infrastructure facilities, then manpower facilities, then there are a host of problems associated with that. Now the most important aspect of teacher education programs that one has to keep in mind, and even NCT has to ensure, that is maintenance of quality and standards. The most priority area that NCT, DEC, Distance Education Council and UGC, University Grants Commission, these three national statutory bodies, they have to look into all these aspects of quality and standards. So in this context, let us listen from Professor Singh that what he has to talk about quality assurance in teacher education.
So as a result of large number of teacher education institutions coming up, the quality is bound to go down. To ensure that the quality doesn't deteriorate and it is maintained, and not only maintained but it enhanced, the UGC has set up an autonomous body known as National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAC, at Bangalore. It is located at Bangalore, and NAC and NCT have gone into a memorandum of understanding to assess the teacher training institutions in the country at the graduate level, and accreditate them, grade them, and prepare a kind of quality assessment grading system for these institutions. So far 180 colleges of education in the country have been assessed and accredited with grades by NAC at Bangalore, and this is a very encouraging development that the general public, the beneficiaries and the functionaries themselves, the community, they know what level is this particular institution has the quality level, so that they can send their wards, and internationally also an institution can be assessed as far as the level of quality is concerned.
Sir, in NCT is also doing some quality assurance measures, as well as the Distance Education Council, which is responsible for maintaining quality standards in the area of distance education, is also responsible for bringing out different quality measures in the field of distance education distance teacher education programs. And with this, I think we come to the end. We have a very interesting discussion on emerging trends in teacher education, right from the history of teacher education in India, different forms of teacher education programs, different curricular concerns and duration, then privatization, quality assurance, a host of issues we discussed in these programs, and we hope that the program will be of use to all of you, and we will be very thankful to Professor Singh, who has kindly devoted time to share his ideas, his long experiences in the field of teacher education for this program. Thank you, Professor Singh.
Thank you
all.